Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. In this podcast, we dive into compassionate leadership in today's fast-paced business environment. With our experience and insights, we'll help you lead with heart while securing your career. Join us for engaging conversations and practical advice to elevate your leadership skills and make a real difference. I'm your host, Chris Ollerking, a Fortune 100 IT leader, alongside Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineering leader. Today, we will discuss how to be a humane leader developing trust while maintaining personal confidentiality. Hey, Roberto, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Chris. Thank you very much. How about you?
I'm doing good, and we both are in different locations today. Some people might notice a bit of difference in our audio, but we're still here with the same content.
As well as video. So let's do it.
Excellent. So you picked an interesting topic. You had commented on LinkedIn about this. So what were your thoughts from the video about developing trust?
Well, the thing is, when I watched a video, which was Simon Sinek talking about performance versus trust, is that trust is something that some people rely on, but many people doesn't have a bond with trust. They are maybe wary of using trust, and maybe that is because in their previous companies or previous projects, they used to have trust with other people, and the other people were let them down. So I think trust is a difficult topic, not difficult topic to discuss, but it is a difficult topic for other people to use. You see?
And it can be very different in different companies for the same person as they go to different companies, because of company culture can affect how you use trust or maybe don't trust. If it's a company that has a lot of not political like government political, but that the employees do a lot of political maneuvering to further their careers, it can be difficult to get trust, develop trust in those situations.
I think that besides maybe the company culture, it is something that is rooted in you. Maybe that it is in your DNA. For most part of my life, I was a guy who trusted a lot, which trusted 100%. If you told me, Roberto, this model is going to be maybe in 10 days, I trusted you. And I say, okay. And when the 10 days arrived, hey, Chris, what's going on? Oh, man, I didn't do it. I had this problem. I felt bad because I say, hey, dude, I gave you my trust. So I think that it is not exclusively related to the company culture, but to what are you,
Yeah, if when you're talking about you personally trusting somebody and giving people benefit of the doubt, very much an internal personality kind of way you operate all the time until that trust is violated, right? And in your example, right, I commit to do something and I don't do it, so now you trust me only half as much, or maybe you don't trust me at all, and then it becomes a trust but verify situation where every time I commit to something, you're checking on me to make sure 10% is done, and then 20% is done, and then 30% is done, and you really unfortunately have to micromanage. And of course, then I'm going to complain, you're micromanaging me. You don't trust me, Roberto. Well, yeah, I kind of demonstrated you can't trust me because I didn't complete the project like I promised. So I think, it's difficult to balance that trust, verify, and get your job done as a leader. You have to lead, and you're being held accountable by the bosses above you, the leaders above you, to get things done. So sometimes the trust has to be developed over time. You can be a very trusting person. So in other words, initially give the benefit of the doubt. But when that trust is broken, you really got to communicate with that person who failed you the person who kind of broke that trust, so that they understand how you need to work with them going forward until that trust can be redeveloped. Because otherwise, they could be a real challenge in terms of leading them, because they're going to be upset with you because you're micromanaging. Well, no, it's that, there was a violation of trust, and I need to rebuild that by seeing you perform as promised.
Okay, one thing that you mentioned, it was micromanagement, and I think, and and I'm going to ask you if trust is related to the leadership styles that you have or you possess, because we spoken in a previous episode that I told you that I have a situational leadership. According to the situation, is the style of leadership that I apply. If someone that I have given my trust lets me down, and what I will do probably is begin to do it maybe in micromanagement, but not for everybody. I will do the same. So, do you think that trust is related or has a bond with leadership style?
Certainly, to a degree. Obviously there are many different leadership styles, but in how it relates to trust, I think when trust is broken, you need to start using some of the different leadership techniques to manage for performance, right? And you may be more strict. Maybe micromanagement is too strong of a word, but maybe you will be more waterfall style in your project management with this person, right? Where very specific subsections of tasks are due at certain times that are very clear, so that you can follow it up. Maybe it's not in the strictest sense micromanagement, but it is a style of communicating and clarifying objectives that are in smaller packages. So you're, as a leader, you're not as at risk as much. And again, you're, as the leader, you're trying to develop trust, that your team trusts what you say, trusts what you do. So you have to be transparent about it all the time. If this person who broke your trust comes to you and complaining, and hey, you're doing this with me, but you don't do that with Roberto, you need to be prepared to divorce the two topics, right? And say, look, I am treating Roberto differently because over time we've developed trust. He's delivered on these major things. There's a reason why I'm doing things different with Roberto and Stephen and Susan and Mary than I am with you. And, clear communication is how you can develop trust with an employee who's broken your trust. It's just be really clear in your communicating as to why you're doing certain things.
Okay. Yes, I understand, and I do the same. And let me tell you, or excuse me, let me ask you, when you got maybe a new job or a new team, did you apply trust immediately, or were you wary? Did you act with caution? What did you do with that team?
I'd say the most difficult new role situations where I tried to establish trust pretty quickly was where I applied for roles or got roles where I knew some of the team members had also applied. So in other words, I beat them out of the promotion, and now I'm their leader, even though they applied for the exact same job and interviewed and did not get the job. And in those situations, while I didn't tell anyone in the team who had applied, I did talk about, that I appreciate that I'm believe that several of you have applied for this role yourselves, and I feel my role as a leader, as I won't be in this role forever, is to develop you so that you'll have a better probability of getting this role or something similar. So for all of you on the team, as we develop our own working relationships and as we go through performance reviews and career planning, let's talk about why you might not have gotten this role and what things can we do to give you opportunities to grow so that the next time you'll be the best candidate for the role. And I think when you acknowledge, like in a lot of companies, the culture would be you keep that secret. Don't acknowledge that someone else on the team applied. Well, in the meantime, they're fuming. They're mad. they're upset they didn't get the promotion. If you just act like that didn't happen, that's not how you develop trust. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to the team members. So for me, I do try to be as much overly trusting as early as possible, and only take corrective action on that if somebody's letting me down.
No, I see, I see. And the thing, one thing important is that we're speaking now about work, but trust is something that we have used all around our lives. When we were children, teenagers, with our family, with friends, and everything. So when we got to our work, maybe our first work, maybe we are, eager and we have maybe a lot of stamina and everything. But regarding trust, we carry it is not a burden, but we carry out everything that we have lived in our life, and trust is something important. So when I think, and I remember when I began working at a bank back in '93, I was so trustful. To me, right now I'm the same. I'm almost the same. But back then I faced too many problems because I was a person who believed that trust was my one of my most important traits. So when I began giving trust to other people who were more seasoned than myself, who maybe have a leadership style different, I I heard myself like this. It was like I was running, and suddenly someone put up a brick wall in front of me, and I smashed, like that. And I faced those situations when I provided all my trust, and people let me down. So when you acknowledge these kind of situations, I think it is really important for you to modify, to adjust your thinking, not to go the other way. If you were 100% trustful, don't be 0%, but try at least to do what Ronald Reagan back then used to say: trust but verify. You provide the trust, but at least verify before you give 100% of yourself. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely correct. You don't want your career to be ruined by being overly trustful until there's enough examples that it's worthy, that the team or the individual that you're putting this trust in is worthy of the risk that you're taking as a leader.
Yes, yes. And one thing that I have seen is that when people let them down and have faced negative situations regarding trust, they say, the heck, I'm going to be trustful again. I'm going to change myself. No, try to be, um, uh, have to be close to yourself so you could remain being that, but at least try to verify. And I'm telling you this because I posted yesterday on LinkedIn. I posted a poll, and what I asked was, how do you handle trust in your work relations? And the most so far has been two of them. I trust with caution, and I trust but verify. Both of them have 39%. The third one was I don't trust easily, 14%, and 8% says I just simply trust. So I think that regarding the personal experience that you have had in the past has set you up so to what are you today.
Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I want to take a turn in the conversation too about trust for those of you who are listening or watching, and you're working on moving up the leadership ladder, into management. don't confuse trust with always telling 100% of the truth. As you move up in your career, there are going to be company secrets, things that, personal integrity items that you cannot divulge to your team, or maybe not yet to your team. And that might be around acquisitions, divestitures, maybe there's layoffs or things like that. So, you have to be very clear that when we're developing trust with our team, the team will have faith in us that we would not do things that are malicious or unfair, etc. But you need to recognize that there are going to be times as a leader where you are told company secrets, let's call it, that you cannot divulge. Let's say it's an acquisition. There might be insider trading stock risk if you were to tell the team that, yeah, we're going to buy company XYZ. Holy cow, they go out and buy the stock. Now, you've been complicit in insider trading. So you do have to realize that sometimes when your team comes to you and asks you, hey, Roberto, are there going to be layoffs? I'm really worried. The market economy and stuff seem to be slowing down. Are there going to be layoffs? And you might know that there's, management is talking about doing a 10% layoff. Well, you can't tell them, well, yeah, I just talked to, the senior vice president of HR and they told me we got to put together our list of 10% of the people to lay off. You can't tell people that until the company says it's okay. So you can't lie, though, and say, or you should not lie, in my opinion, and say, there's no layoffs, don't worry about it. Because I've met leaders who, even though the layoffs were in the works, would say that. And that's, I think, where you break down trust. The employee should recognize that sometimes the leader has secrets, but, you don't want to lie either. I think of the more trusting thing to say in those situations is, look, Roberto, the economy does seem like it's slowing down to me, and companies frequently use layoffs as a way to manage costs. I don't know if our company, would do the same 10 or 20% that company XYZ is doing, but I think all companies would consider layoffs if the economy got really bad. So, let's suppose that the HR leaders told us that they're going to lay off 10%. Well, in this situation, the employees may come to you. They recognize the economy is not doing very well, and they directly ask you, Chris, do you have layoffs? But you can't, in my opinion, just flat out say, no, don't worry about it. I've met leaders that have done that. I don't recommend it, because that's actually lying. That's not being trustful. The employees have to realize that sometimes leaders have to have secrets. So instead, my answer to that would be, look, almost all companies in a bad economic situation would consider layoffs to reduce costs. So if you talk about companies in general, talk about how management of many different firms come to similar conclusions, you can assure them that, look, I'm not going to lie to you, because sometimes there's secrets, right? And if you always have this trust from earlier, they'll understand that you're trying to discuss with them to the degree you can. Look, the economy doesn't look great, and if you're concerned, you should be ready with a resume. I always have my resume ready. That's being trusting, right? I do, in case the economy turns bad and I get laid off, I've got my LinkedIn profile up to date and I have my resume up to date. So, you have to balance trust with confidentiality. Because obviously, if they came to you and said, hey, I don't like how Susie's performing on the team, did you give her a bad performance review? I would hope you understand that that's confidential, and I cannot discuss an individual's performance with you. We trust, but that's confidential. And so there's topics like that I highly recommend you don't lie, but perhaps you have to answer in general terms of, if the economy is bad, I would expect the company to consider layoffs. But have those conversations long before the HR has told you to develop your 10% list, because you want that trust ahead of time. If you have to start and develop the trust when already the company's told you, we're going to cut the company in half and sell off half, and you're just starting to develop trust, it's going to be very challenging.
Yes, and one thing is that even though you cannot tell the plain truth, as you mentioned, because you have an NDA behind you, which limits you the amount and the kind of information that you can provide. But one thing is to have, and we have spoken that with our team we have a close relationship, and this trust, you cannot break the trust that the company has given you because that is the NDA. And you cannot, um, maybe, and what you told me before we began recording was lying to your team. So try to also acknowledge the emotions that people are having, because they might, you do not see what's going on behind in their lives. Maybe someone has this only income to pay the mortgage that they have, or maybe they have a difficult situations which involves their economics. So you do not put on someone else shoes, but try at least to use, not use, to be empathetic regarding these emotions when they approach you, and tell it maybe the truth about, I cannot tell you everything that you're asking me because I have this, I'm abiding to this NDA. So what I usually think is, because I haven't faced this kind of situation because I haven't worked in a big, well-known company for many years, but here in startups, we see on all hands meetings how the company is going. And when they say to you, maybe we had to, I don't know, sell 10 and we have only sold one or two for the last month, people begin saying, what is going on? Is the company going to be on track for the next month? Is it not? And let me tell you something. Recently, a former engineer of mine, she approached me and said, Roberto, I'm getting married. I want to buy a house. But since I'm in a startup, I don't know if I want to get to buying a house with my fiance because I might lose my job suddenly. And I said, yes, how is the numbers in the startup that you're working. So be prepared, but at least have your, as you mentioned, your resume polished and ready if something happens. But that is, so I think trust is something that we are willing to provide, but we have certain boundaries and limits that uh, doesn't allow us to move maybe as either fast or as long a stretch as possible.
Exactly right.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so with this, maybe if you could drop maybe a line or a comment before we do the wrap up.
Well, I think, developing trust is certainly a hot topic, certainly in times when the economy might not be doing so very well. So I would invest my time early before you're going to need to have the trust of your employees. This is one of those things where you got to invest a penny every day to get your dollar's worth of trust. You're not going to be able to develop this in 1 week when all of a sudden you need a lot of trust because some big company announcement comes out. So make your investment in trust every day versus trying to buy it all with $1 the week you really need it.
Yeah, and just for closing that, yes, trust, it is an investment. Don't say it like it is not, because when you trust other people, you're adding, besides a penny, besides maybe a quarter, you're adding trust to yourself to understand what is going on with different people, and how can you manage trust with other people and the other people to you. But well,
Absolutely.
great,
Very good.
great. If you want to do the wrap up, please.
Certainly. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We hope our insights help you become a smarter and more strategic leader. Apply today's lessons to see the positive impact on your team and career. Catch all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and of course, YouTube. Join us next week as we discuss something trendy in the leadership world. Until then, stay humane, stay successful. See you later, Roberto.
Bye, Chris.